There's already been a lot of attention put on this issue by pro players, higher rated YouTubers, etc., content creators. But I honestly feel like that this topic is missing a lot of nuance because of that. It's missing a lot of diversity of opinions. Now, on the one hand, I can already hear the elite of the r slash Valorant Redditors angrily shaking in their gamer chairs over the thought of a filthy silver like myself having an opinion about the game. And to be fair, I absolutely agree that Riot should be incredibly careful about who they take their balancing advice from. Obviously, they should be trusting their actual in game testing data when it comes to things like balancing weapons, abilities, agents, maps, etc. But when it comes to an external issue like smurfing, hacking, toxicity, this external issue that is more community centered, I really feel like it can be beneficial to have inputs from all spectrums of the Valorant community. I mean, as it currently stands right now, the lower elos do make up the majority of the Valorant rank distribution. And the good chunk of us really do spend money on this game as well. So it only makes sense that we would develop our own opinions regarding some of these issues based upon our experiences from the game, and that we really should find a way to voice these opinions in a constructive manner that isn't just the same 20 Reddit posts a day that we see on r/Valorant. Now, before I actually get into this subject, I want to get something out of the way, because I know that this is going to encapsulate the majority of the responses to this video. I am not saying that I deserve to be in a higher rank and that Smurfs are holding me back. Trust me, I legitimately play like, and I 100% deserve to be in silver. Furthermore, I absolutely agree that having a defeatist attitude just because there are Smurfs aren't going to help you progress in this game. The YouTuber Eggwick made an excellent video on this subject, and I highly recommend it. I do disagree with him on one of his points, basically the idea that every gamer has come across Smurfs in every single game, and so Valorant isn't that different, but I'm going to be talking about that later on. But his analysis of this idea that there's nothing you can do about the actual game that you're in at that moment, regardless of Smurfs, is absolutely true. The best thing you can do at that point is analyze what mistakes you made during that game, Smurfs or not, what can you improve on, and use that to progress your own personal gameplay. Blaming all your losses on Smurfs alone, instead of looking for mistakes to fix, isn't going to help you progress in this game. Also, in this video, he additionally goes into some tricks and tips that will help you deal with the Smurf if you know one's in your game. So again, great video, really check it out. Really recommend it. I'll put the link to it in the description. So again, getting that out of the way, I'm not blaming Smurfs for my rank, and I absolutely agree that focusing solely on Smurfs for the reason of your loss isn't going to help you progress in this game. What I do want to address, however, is that Valorant does have a smurfing problem that is comparatively worse than other competitive games, even those that are free to play. This is the result of the combination of minimal barriers that combat smurfing that we see in other games, the cavalier attitude of the Valorant community that has effectively normalized smurfing, and the hypocritical response of both pro players and content creators that has basically additionally normalized smurfing. So I'm going to be going over these points in the first half of this video, and then I'm going to round this out in the second half of the video by looking at a content creator's content, the King Live, look at his take on the issue, and kind of use his video as a foundation to reply to some of the basic arguments defending smurfing. The reason why I chose him to do this is because, first of all, his videos are one of the first ones to pop up on the subject if you look Valorant smurfing in YouTube, and once you get past all the cringy compilations of all the pros destroying iron in Smurfs. But furthermore, I feel like his arguments that defend smurfing are the most level-headed in both their content and delivery. He makes some really interesting points that I would like to address. They really encapsulate what I feel like the Valorant community that is kind of defending smurfing. They kind of really sum all those points up, and it's not just you suck on install. Leave that for commenting down on this video below. So one of the first things you're going to hear if you bring up the topic of smurfing is, well, that's just the nature of competitive games, especially when it's free to play, and there's nothing that's really going to change. It's in all games. And to a degree, that's 100% correct. I totally understand that all games suffer from smurfing in some shape or form, in that it is incredibly difficult to eradicate smurfing. Actually, it's impossible to totally eradicate smurfing entirely from any game, free to play or not. Although I have to respect Dota's recent hard stance on banning smurfing across the board. What I want to talk about though is the incredible lack of barriers that makes smurfing comparatively worse in Valorant. So League of Legends is another free-to-play game that also struggles with smurfing. But there are at least a couple of barriers that make it a little bit more difficult than in Valorant. First off, there's a smurf queue that at least tries to recognize and queue overperforming relative to their rank players together in a lobby separate from other players. Not saying it's perfect, but at least it tries. Secondly, the level 30 plus 20 champions requirement before you can play ranked makes it so that you have to invest much more time if we look at a purely free-to-play standpoint, not investing in any boosters or anything like that, to get an account comp ready in League of Legends. I mean, come on, let's be honest. If you actually try a little bit in Valorant, especially with a stack, getting those 10 unranked wins, you could grind that in a single day if you really wanted to. And over the course of 2 or 3 days, that's really not that hard to do. And it's for that reason that the price difference in buying an unranked comp ready account in League of Legends compared to Valorant is so different. So I went around and looked at a couple of sources, and the median price for League of Legends is around $20 to $25 for an unranked ready to play account, although I did find one that was cheaper on sale for about $13. For Valorant, literally the first website, if you Google unranked comp ready accounts, is $4 for a comp ready unranked account. And similar with CSGO, you can at least purchase a Prime account and get matched up with other Prime account players and avoid all the smurfs in the free-to-play lobbies. It's once more at $15 more expensive much more expensive than an unranked comp ready Valorant account of the same caliber. Furthermore, having to make a new Steam account and tie a phone number that it has to be verified to the new account additionally makes it a little bit more complicated to make a Smurf account for CSGO. Hell, you have to spend more money to get a fake phone number to verify that Steam account than you would to just buy the Valorant account. So, to sum this up, I'm not saying that Valorant is the first game to experience Smurfs, and it's definitely not going to be the last. What I am saying, in response to the general attitude, well, Smurfs are in every game, and so there's no problem here. I'm saying that Valorant is unique in that it is incredibly easy to make a comp-ready account comparatively to other free-to-play games. There is no Smurf queue that at least provides a little bit of pushback. And even the comp-ready Smurfing market is much, much less expensive, comparatively speaking, when we look at other games. So if you hold this position that, well, I dealt with smurfing when I was in CSGO, so, it's just your turn, it's not a problem. Well, I want you to think of this situation, right? Imagine you just started CSGO again, but instead of having to spend the $15 for a Prime account, or let's say you bought CSGO when you still had to pay for CSGO, instead of spending that $15, it was totally free. Steam didn't require a phone number for verification. Take your previous experience and how much you dealt with Smurfs then, and then consider all of those considerations, and think about how much worse it would have been. That's Valorant. But even this wouldn't be too much of an issue if the Valorant community stepped up to the plate and combated smurfing internally. Actually, some articles have already written about this, talking about how since Riot isn't going to really step up to the plate, we really do have to take it upon ourselves within the community. Unfortunately, Valorant has really failed in this regard as well, spectacularly. Now, one of the biggest responses we've seen in response to lower elo players who bring up the topic of smurfing is that there aren't that many Smurfs in Valorant, similar to the argument about how every game has Smurfs. And to their credit, they're absolutely correct that not every game where some dude pops off with 30 or 40 kills, it doesn't mean that that's always a Smurf. I've had that happen to myself. Everyone's popped off at some point when you're just in the zone, But what I will say is that if you take the time to simply ask players when they start to perform suspiciously above their lobby rank, politely and just out of curiosity, Smurfs will genuinely tell you when they're smurfing. And they'll say something like, yeah, sorry man, I'm really just trying to get my buddy out of bronze, silver, etc. Sorry. Or they get toxic. And then the Reyna who dropped a 50 bomb just happened to be named I am a smurf and is an unranked account. So, take that as you will. Now, I will admit, I generally play in the weekends with a 4-stack or a 5-stack. And because of that, it's a little bit more likely that I'm going to run into smurfs. But all I can talk about is my personal experience, so take this as you will. On a casual night of ranked games, let's say 5 games, me and my stack will run into at least one blatant smurf. And when I say blatant, I mean either A, they admit it in all chat, or B, their name literally says smurf something, some variation of smurf, and it's an unranked account. And that's just considering blatant smurfs. It's not even considering the more camouflage smurfs that are there, they hang back, they don't really top frag, but when they need to, they do clutch up to make sure that their friend wins the game. Again, this is just my experience. It would be really cool if we could actually get a larger content creator to sponsor a more methodologically driven process, similar to what Eggwick did, going back to that YouTuber, great YouTuber, who analyzed toxicity towards female Valorant players by recruiting some of his viewers to collect data within games. But like I said, in order to do that, we actually need to address this problem as a community, so maybe in the future. Furthermore, we have to recognize that the overarching level of smurfs can also additionally cause a trickle-down effect through the ranks. Now again, I'm not saying that I'm being held back by smurfs, garbage silver through and through. But I can absolutely see how a gold player who deserves to be in gold can get pushed down to silver by a combination of actual smurfs, levers, and then just a couple of unlucky games. So now he's in gold, he dunks on silvers because he deserves to be in gold, just to get back into his rank. So now that one of those silvers that he dunked on, maybe he runs into a couple of levers, smurfs, etc. So now that silver gets pushed down a little bit, and then he dunks on the bronze players below him. And so what we see here is that although there are absolutely games where people aren't intentionally smurfing, it is very possible that the additional consequence of real smurfs adds to problems that cause them to be bumped down and skew the ranked experience even more. Another common response that I've seen when people bring up smurfing is that they bring up their rank distribution. That looks like this currently. Basically saying that, well, let's say only 1 of the 7% of the plat smurfed, there's not enough of that distribution to actually make this problem as prevalent as people say. And there's a couple of problems with that consideration. Firstly, there's this generalized response that you're only really smurfing if you're plat or higher, right? Which is of course only held by plat and higher players. Totally a coincidence, I'm sure. First, I would argue that this assertion is simply incorrect. The YouTube channel Valorant Careers showed in a couple of videos that a team of silvers will absolutely decimate a team of irons, and a team of golds will similarly absolutely decimate a team of bronze. So even if it's just 1 or 2 golds in a bronze game, even though it's not going to be a hard stomp or a hard carry, it will probably be more than enough to ensure that a close game goes in the favor of the team that has the smurfs. But you know what? Let's go ahead and go with the assumption that only 1% of the 7% of those plat players are actually smurfing. So remember how comparatively easy it is to make smurf accounts in Valorant. It's not that crazy to assume that each of these smurfs will have 2 or 3 accounts, if not more, that they'll cycle through in order to make sure that they stay in that low elo when they play with their friends. So what we see is that 1% of the 7% actually turns into 3, 4, 5% that is distributed and then further skews this rank distribution that we see. And that's working with the conservative assumption that only 1 of that 7% of plat players, as well as the incorrect definition that only plat and above can be a smurf. But you know what? All of this is leading up to this primary point that I'm trying to hammer home here. And it is that, holy cow, I have never met a competitive community that is more forgiving when it comes to smurfing. And maybe that's just me, but before Valorant, I came from R6 Siege. And while I really enjoyed the game, I didn't really take the ranked grind as seriously as I do Valorant, mostly because of the lack of a deathmatch or a range where you can effectively really work on your mechanical skills without spending hours queuing for T-Hunt. But when I did grind ranked within Siege for the time that I did, I grinded from copper all the way up to gold. Not the best, but that's what I did. And holy cow, while there were smurfs, as there always will be to a degree, like I said, the community response was so much different than in Valorant. Instead of these same talking points of, well, we dealt with it in other games, so it's just your turn now, you're just complaining, or there's not that many smurfs, you're just making excuses, or only X rank can actually smurf. The general response was, yeah, they suck, we hate them. And it actually wasn't even uncommon, from what I saw at least, for teams to TK a smurf if he openly started bragging about it, because the community didn't want that to become the norm. And the result of that was, while there were sometimes those Ash Jaeger mains who easily top fragged, it was less common than what I've seen in Valorant so far, and you could actually see a marked skill differential between the ranks, with utility usage, droning, mechanical skills being much more consistent and appropriate to each rank. So the smurfing problem in Valorant is not simply the result of how easy it is to make and purchase a comp account. It is additionally the result of the Valorant community's cavalier and, quite frankly, sometimes condescending and gaslighting attitude to players who bring up legitimate complaints about the comparatively worse smurfing problems that they've experienced. Yet unfortunately, this problem has not stopped at the big brain redditors in r/Valorant either. Now, there are plenty of YouTubers and pro players who have smurfed, but I can't really give them any shit because at least they haven't commented on the issue. I still definitely disagree with them, but they're not hypocrites. Anybody who knows anything about Valorant knows who I'm about to call out. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this, but this is why I'm calling you directly out, Hiko. You yourself commented on how smurfing ruins competitive integrity as well as the experience of Valorant players, especially those just starting out in the game. And I want to quote you here: if you're gonna smurf, there's definitely a place where you can play as a smurf, and it's called unrated. And that's a really good take. So, it's kind of a shame that we see you on a stream later, smurfing in plat to play with Pokimane. Like, come on, man. You not only called out the situation, you additionally outlined the situation, or you outlined the solution, and then effectively continue to make this problem worse by continuing to normalize smurfing just so you can get that content. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there isn't a level of hypocrisy among lower elo players that has additionally allowed this problem to fester. So despite the fact that we all hate smurfs in these lower ranks, a lot of us additionally have adopted a, well, if you can't beat him, join him attitude, and have happily accepted the offer of a higher ranked player to help them get out of their stuck rank. And at this point, adopting your own smurf into your queue has almost become a necessary evil in order to properly rank up effectively. Now, personally, and I'm sure there are plenty of other silent players who hold this position, I would rather drop and be stuck in iron forever before I drop to this low. But the fact that this dichotomy of players in the lower elos is so open and pronounced is incredibly telling of this problem. So to conclude the first half of this video, once again, I'm not saying that I deserve to be a higher rank. I'm a silver all the way. Furthermore, I additionally agree that there is no use in giving up in a game or blaming all your losses on smurfs. It is much better to take each game individually, analyze what you could have done better, and try to fix your mistakes, even if you get stomped by a Radiant Smurf. What I am saying is that Valorant is suffering a recognizably and a comparatively worse smurfing problem, in contrast to other competitive games, even if they're free to play, that is negatively impacting the competitive experience of lower elo players overall. This is the consequence of the ease of access of comp-ready accounts, the cavalier and sometimes downright condescending attitude of the Valorant community towards lower elo players who bring up this subject, and the hypocrisy among pro players and low elo players that has effectively, aggressively normalized smurfing. You know, I really do enjoy this game, and I want it to last for a long, long time. But we need to realize that although Valorant is enjoying a boost in popularity right now, especially on Twitch, boosts like these are usually pretty temporary. Valorant will need to succeed in securing a steady stream of new players if it wants to make sure that its competitive integrity lasts for a long time. I am legitimately concerned that if this issue isn't fixed, whether by implements set up by Riot, although I think that will be difficult, or by the community itself, I think it's going to be really hard for Valorant to secure that steady stream of new players that it's really going to need in the future. Now, like I said, I'm going to round out this video by looking at some of the arguments that King Live makes in support of smurfing. Once again, nothing against you personally, my man. I, in fact, really enjoy the rest of your content quite a bit. Your take on the issue is simply the most level-headed and one of the top videos to pop up, algorithmically speaking. So his second and more recent video on the subject actually talks more to the smurfs and discusses how smurfing won't make you play better at the game, and it even acknowledges that if you smurf and talk shit to players who are just trying to play within their own rank, you're pretty much a scum of the earth. So basically that video, I don't really need to go over it, but his first video, the initial video that goes in the subject, really actually kind of defends smurfing, and it kind of encapsulates the attitude of the Valorant community at large that has allowed for this problem to develop into the comparatively worst issue that we have here today. So I'm really going to focus on that old video and use it as a talking point to rebut common arguments supporting, or at the very least, downplaying smurfing.
Somebody got really upset with me on a video one time. They're like, don't you think that smurfing hurts the experience for lower ranked players? And my response is yes, but I wanted to play with my friends. Maybe it's a little bit selfish, but like, I don't know. Let me queue with my friends. I want to play with my silver friends. The only way I could do that is I have to have a smurf, so I made a smurf.
You're absolutely right. It is selfish. Hard to stop. The whole point of the ranked experience is for players to be assigned a certain designation based upon their skill level, and to play against players of that similar range of skill and organically develop by gradually beating progressively better and better players of a slightly higher range.
Sorry, maybe that's selfish. It's not uncommon. A lot of people do it.
Yes, and that reason is because the Valorant community has adopted your mentality and basically normalized smurfing. Like, and this goes out to all smurfs, but I'm sorry. The ranked isn't here to revolve around you and your friends. You want to play with your friends? Play with them unrated or make custom 10-mans. And you do address this point when you say,
King, why don't you just play unrated? Because my friends want to play competitive, dude. My friends wanted to play comp, so I'm playing comp with them.
And I understand that. And I also get that, you know, as it currently stands, unrated is kind of a joke. But that is a direct consequence of players like yourself, instead of taking personal responsibility to play an unrated and make unrated a better experience, you're taking the easy route out at the expense of other lower elo players.
Smurfing really isn't that bad. Most Smurfs suck too, just for the record.
Man, I wonder who's saying that. Definitely going to be the Smurfs themselves, right?
It is on a very rare occasion that you're going to go against the Smurf that's going to like hard carry. A lot of the times when you see Smurfs, it's like, oh, I'm Smurfing, and they're in like gold, but like their actual main is in like platinum, dude. That's not you're hardly a Smurf, dude. Like even if you're diamond down to gold, like you're Smurfing, but like it's not insane.
Once again, I wonder who's actually holding this view. Definitely couldn't be the Smurfs themselves. Now don't get me wrong, not every Smurf actually goes 50 and 4 super hard carry mode like I talked about before. But at the end of the day, especially if they're queuing their friends and trying to help them get out of a certain rank, even if they're like hanging back and making sure that they're not popping off too hard, they will clutch up at the end to make sure that their friends win. Not to mention, we haven't even gotten into the issue of hidden MMR. Let's say a Smurf makes a low silver account to play with his friends, doesn't hard carry, but he makes sure that he clutches up in the end to make sure that his friends win. So now, not only has the losing team lost their silver game, the higher silvers have lost even more MMR because in the eyes of the Valorant ranking system, they lost to a lower rated silver.
Yep. A big Smurf would be like Immortals in gold. Immortal gold or like Immortal like silver. That would be pretty crazy. I don't want to play against an Immortal player in silver. But like diamond players aren't that much crazier than platinum players.
And again, definitely couldn't be the now diamond guys who started playing when the rank distribution looked like this instead of this that are saying this, right?
I have to play 20 unrated games to do that. And that's going to prevent most Smurfs.
And ironically enough, Valorant has actually made it easier at just 10 wins, like I pointed out earlier. And at $3 a pop for comp-ready accounts, that's just even more incorrect.
Some guy pops off. Yeah, people are like, that guy's a Smurf. He could just be having a good game. Maybe you're just like not playing well. There's a lot of different variables. He could be a Smurf.
And you know what? That's actually a point that I 100% agree with. Sometimes we just pop off. And sometimes the other guy pops off. However, as I pointed out, there is a clear comparatively worse smurfing problem in Valorant that has even accented a trickle-down effect, as I noted earlier. It's definitely true that not every instance of a guy popping off is a consequence of a smurf, but that doesn't mean that smurfing is not ruining the competitive experience for lower elo players at large.
Another thing too is when you're playing against a Smurf, you should take it as an opportunity to learn. You're playing against a player who's better than you. He's not hacking. He's not. He's a better player than you, and he is playing very well. That should be exciting to you. You should watch how this player is playing and try to figure out what you can learn from it. It's not about, oh, this guy's smurfing and he's destroying me. That game's about more than you gaining elo or losing elo. Yeah, you're probably gonna lose rank. You'll probably lose to this player, but what can you learn from that player? Because the only way to get better is by playing against people better than you. That's the only. You're not gonna get better by playing against people worse than you. So,
ooh boy. Okay, so this is the encapsulation of the condescending, big brain r/Valorant redditor approach to smurfing. Coming from a self-admitted smurf. Of course you hold this opinion. You're the diamond smurf who is playing with your friends in silver, teaching the other silver a lesson. Dude, this guy didn't queue up into a silver comp lobby to learn from you. If he wanted to learn from a diamond, he would either A, play 10 mans with a diamond, or B, play unrated with diamonds. Like, what's so exciting about getting one tap 10 times in a row? What are you gonna learn from that? That my mechanical skills are at a silver level instead of a diamond level? Like, damn dude, tell me something I don't know. I'm gonna love with you, man. And this really does apply to the greater Smurf community that holds this opinion, which is why I chose this video to address. You're lying to yourself to justify the fact that you smurf to play with your friends. You know you're ruining the competitive experience of other players, and you yourself admitted that as much when you said you just want to play with your friends. But you're still trying to justify it on top of that by saying he should be happy that he's learning from a better player. You know, it's hilarious because this kind of logic doesn't apply to literally any other competitive activity. So I'm really into martial arts, right? I love Taekwondo, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, etc. And, you know, I'm just trying to like apply this logic to, let's say, a small BJJ tournament, right? Like imagine being a BJJ blue belt. You go to this tournament, ready to compete in the BJJ, the blue belt division. You get your ass absolutely handed to you by this guy. And then afterwards, he comes up to you and goes, oh, by the way, I'm actually a black belt. But you know, you're welcome for the experience. Like, dude, if I wanted to learn from a black belt, I would roll with a black belt back at the gym. This is a blue belt competition. And you know, obviously, I can see that there's a bit of a difference between prepping for a physical tournament like that and queuing up for your nightly comp games. But at the same time, I think that the beauty of competitive games like this is that we can take that competitive experience and drive from other activities, and we can take that and put it into a daily routine. I think that's really, really cool. Especially with COVID going on right now and how gyms in Toronto have been closed for half a year. It's really cool to be able to sit down, learn a new skill, and take part in this competitive environment when other things are closed. Or, you know, it would be if there weren't Smurfs, but whatever.
people worse than you. So if you feel like you're better than silver players and you're playing in a silver matchmaking and you're winning all of your games, but then you get paired against a Smurf and you're upset that that Smurf beat you, you should be excited because that was finally the one person who could rival you in your matchmaking.
You know, what's so funny is that the same people who hold this kind of opinion are probably the same people telling silvers, you're not stuck in your rank because you're playing against Smurfs. You're stuck in your rank because you're bad. And yet here you outline a situation where, specifically in this situation, a silver is winning all of their silver games, is assumably about to rank up to gold, and then they lose on their gold rank up game to a smurf. And you're telling them they should be excited because they finally got challenged and beaten down by this smurf. Like, dude, I'm not saying that I'm stuck in silver because of smurfs, but I can 100% see how someone would get stuck in silver because of this. Not only because they lose their rank up game, but like I noted before, let's say that smurf account has a lower hidden MMR than that silver who is about to rank up. So not only have they now lost that rank up game, in the eyes of Valorant, they just lost to a worse silver. So they're going to get knocked down even further than if they just lost organically. And again, applying this logic to a different competitive sphere like BJJ. Imagine being a white belt who's really progressing, choking other white belts out left and right, doing great, and your coach comes up and says, you know what, I think you might be ready to test for blue. I'm going to put you in this tournament. If you do really well against this other white belt, then we'll go ahead and test you up to blue. So you go in there and you're like, all right, okay, awesome, cool, feeling confident. And then you get your ass absolutely stomped. And then afterwards, the guy goes, yeah, it was a purple belt, not a white belt. And imagine your coach knowing that, and yet he still says, yeah, but he was wearing a white belt when he was sparring you, so, sorry, you gotta stay in white. But it was a good experience, you learned from him. Like, dude, I'm gonna just have to tell you how it is. You're just trying to justify the fact that you've ruined games for other low elo players because you wanted to play with your friends in silver.
If you're gonna always blame your losses on external things, then you're gonna really struggle to improve.
And you know what? This is the one point that I absolutely agree with. There's no point in getting pissed off and just counting every loss as a result of smurfs. Even if you know that there's a radiant smurf in your queue, his name is literally I am a smurf, and he calls you shit every time he kills you. I absolutely agree that it is much more productive to still take that match, analyze it, try to learn whatever you can from it, and to move on. Probably not going to be able to take much from it, but do your best. However, that does not take away from the fact that A, the attitude of the Valorant community has normalized smurfing, and B, we should accept personal responsibility and strive to make this competitive experience as genuine as possible, despite what everyone else is doing.
Because these same people who blame Smurfs, they're the same people who blame their teammates. They're the same people who always they're like, oh, it's the matchmaking. The same people who say, oh, I was lagging. Oh, I have 50 ping. Oh, this is stupid. I can't play with 50 ping. I'm like, dude, 50 ping is not a lot. Same people who blame getting split every single freaking time. That's me, dude. I'm getting split a lot, and I'm getting very frustrated. But I also recognize that the reason I'm losing on split has nothing to do with the map, and it has everything to do with me. There's teams like Sentinels, who, obviously I'm not playing as Sentinels, but there's teams who win 100% of the time on split. Or not 100%, but they win very frequently on split. It's just the same way that I win like 80% of the time on Ascent. There's something that I don't know, that I don't recognize, that when I play on split, I struggle. It's something to do with me. It has nothing to do with any other factors. It is something to do with me that I don't get on how to play on split. There's something wrong there.
Yeah, I can also agree with that. That's why I'm saying I'm legitimate silver. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I know that I'm bad at this game, and I have much more to improve on, far beyond just smurfs. But this is why I really want to talk about this subject, because I feel like there are plenty of other players who feel like I do, who understand that they have plenty of skills to work on, but they still want to comment on their experiences and observations regarding this subject.
I really have to say it again for like the people in the back, because I'll make a whole video talking about how you need to accept responsibility for your actions, or accept responsibility for like your own like growth within the game. I'll still get comments on videos where people are like, my teammates suck, and I'm like, you're missing the point, homie. It's not about your teammates. It's not about elo hell. It's not about matchmaking. It is about you.
And again, I absolutely agree with this idea. The problem is that you really need to do a little bit of introspection and apply this thinking to your own queuing experience. Take personal responsibility for how you've contributed to smurfing in Valorant. It's really easy to point at Riot and say, well, they're not letting me play with my friends, so it's not my fault that I'm smurfing, It's hard to take responsibility and tell your friends, you know what, this is gonna screw with the other dude's elo. Let's just play some unrated, I'll help you get up to my level, and then we can queue and diamond together once you get up here. You know, or make a video about how there should be 2 types of unrated. One that's a little bit more casual, and one that's basically comp, but any ranks can queue in it. You talk a lot about personal responsibility, and I really do agree with you on those points. But it's really frustrating when content creators like yourself turn around and then don't take personal responsibility and blame Riot for the reason that they're smurfing, instead of realizing that they're just adding to this problem. You know what? This is starting to look like it might come off as more of a direct attack than I would have liked. And I don't really want it to come off like that. I really wanted to just use your video as a kind of foundation, because I feel like it was a really good level-headed summary of a lot of the arguments that I've seen defending Smurfs. So the King Live, no hate here. I actually really do like a lot of your other content. I simply basically disagree with your take on smurfing and think it's a really good representation of the common arguments that a lot of Smurfs make. Or at least that's what I would have said until a couple of days ago. Because I actually have to make a bit of an interjection. When I originally wrote this script, I really did intend to leave the subject there. And everything that I said earlier, by the way, still stands. My commentary on the King Live smurfing video is a commentary on the argument Smurfs make rather than an argument against him directly. But this next part really is a direct response to you, the King Live. So on one of his latest videos he uploaded, he basically ranted that he would really like for Valorant to implement a map ban feature as part of the queuing experience because he hates Icebox. Basically, people usually have that one map that they really don't like. For him, it's Icebox. And since we'll have 6 maps with Breeze, it's time for them to implement that feature. And for the record, by the way, I 110% agree with that opinion. But the thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was the way he approached this issue, in that he wants the map ban specifically because he feels Icebox ruins his experience in the game and makes it less enjoyable. And again, totally valid viewpoint. I hate Icebox as much as the next guy. But coming off this smurfing video, where you tell people to take personal responsibility, see where you can improve and to not make excuses, and then saying Riot should implement a map ban system because you don't like a map, like, come on, dude, it's a little ironic. So basically I commented that, and I'm gonna put that up here. You can pause and read it if you would like. And to be fair, I definitely was a little bit aggressive in my comment in the heat of the moment when I was watching it. So I do apologize for that. But holy cow, man, your response. I don't know if you just really hate Icebox, but I clearly hit a nerve here. So first off, as I noted in the first half of this video, there are certain measures that Riot can take to combat smurfing. In addition to the barriers that other games have, Dota literally just made smurfing a full-on bannable offense. So, you know, I don't know how effective that'll be, and I obviously don't expect Riot to do that, but at least there is evidence of a concrete attempt that can be made if Riot wanted to do that. But I will concede that you are absolutely correct that a map ban system is easier for Riot to implement than any sort of smurfing speed bump. Which is why I think that it is so important for us to tackle this issue within the Valorant community, and which is why it's so frustrating when content creators like yourself defend smurfing, saying that we should be excited to learn from it. And this is why I called you a hypocrite. You see, when someone talks about smurfing and how it has ruined their Valorant experience, you tell them this. But then you turn around and say a map ban should be implemented because you don't like Icebox and it ruins your experience? Like, dude, which is it? Are you a fighter looking for solutions, or are you giving up and complaining? So, and you know, for the record, by the way, I agree with you. I 100% don't like Icebox for the exact reasons you outlined in this video. It's a fantastic video showing the problems with Icebox, and I can absolutely understand how it makes the game less enjoyable, especially when you get the map multiple times in a row. And I think a map ban system is an excellent way to address this issue, especially now that we have 6 maps in rotation. But when you condescendingly tell people that they are just making excuses, are choosing to give up when they talk about their experiences playing Valorant, especially when you're self-admitted smurf yourself, and then turn around and say Riot should implement X change because you have a complaint and Y factor is ruining your experience, that's incredibly hypocritical. You also make this final point that this fucking silver mentality of mine is that you never deal with Smurfs. Dude, I never once said that. And like you said, I'm sure you deal with Smurfs all the time too. What I am saying is that you are adding to the problem by A, smurfing yourself, B, normalizing smurfing within the Valorant community instead of trying to make a positive change, and C, trying to justify the fact that you're playing with lower ranked friends at the expense of other players by condescendingly telling them that they just need to have the right mentality, only to turn around and complain how Icebox is ruining your competitive experience. So yeah, I already made a conclusion for the first half of my video where I presented my argument as to why Valorant has a comparatively worse smurfing problem in contrast to other video games. But to round out the rest of this video, I just want to challenge Smurfs, as well as higher ranked non-Smurfs, who have a little bit of that cavalier attitude when lower ranked players bring up the subject. Consider what you can do when this subject comes up, right? Maybe you're a CSGO immigrant, or maybe you grinded through the ranks when the rank distribution looked like this instead of this. I know it's annoying that literally every other post in r/Valorant is about Smurfs these days. But take a step back and think that maybe there's a reason why there's been an uptick in these posts very recently. What can you personally do that will actually contribute to addressing this problem, instead of simply boosting your friends with this, well, if you can't beat them, join them mentality, at the expense of other low elo players? Since this is a totally new video by a no-name channel, I highly doubt this is going to get a lot of attention. But if somehow it does hit the algorithm lottery, I really appreciate that you stopped by and checked out my opinion on the matter. Tell me you suck uninstall down in the comments below. In all seriousness, so if you'd like to have a discussion about this issue, I'll try to reply to every comment that I can.